Morning, everyone. We'll get started. We do have a quorum. Welcome, everyone, to the meeting number 35, House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, also known as the Mighty OGO. Today, we're continuing our air defense procurement project study. We have witnesses from 11 to 12. From Thales, Canada, we have Chris Pogue, the Chief Executive. And then from the Conference of Defense Associations, we have Yuri Cormier, the Executive Director. We'll start with 5-minute briefs from both of them. Mr. Pogue, if you would like to go first, please, for 5 minutes. Please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. As noted, I'm Chris Pogue, the CEO for Thales Canada, part of the Thales Group of companies, a global technology leader with 80,000 employees operating in 68 countries. I want to extend my sincere appreciation for this opportunity to discuss defence procurement with a specific emphasis on Canada's air defence needs. I also want to come before you recognizing that I've served 20 years in the Canadian military and now almost 20 years in the Canadian defence sector. And throughout this time in industry, my North Star has always been to serve those who serve. I can say the same spirit exists within our team. With over 2,000 employees of Thales in Canada and considerable investment in Canada, one example being $40 million annually in R&D executed right here. We are building a safer, greener, more inclusive future that we can all trust, developing Canadian capabilities in augmented intelligence, cloud computing, and collaborative defense and security. To the point of today's gathering, change is the status quo, and never has there been more need for change than what is urgent today. With war raging in Ukraine, Canada's Chief of Defence Staff is pushing for industry to move to wartime footing. Western leaders are looking to shore up friends, to reduce trade barriers and supply chain risks, underscoring the need to acquire the interoperable solutions best suited to supporting allied missions. To act, however, industry needs more than a demand signal. It needs orders framed with predictability and timeliness. Those orders can enable faster delivery of outcomes and in better ways. When it comes to procuring wartime capabilities, slow and steady cannot win this race, nor will going it alone. Canada must move in step with its allies. Winning modern wars is made possible only when allies cooperate seamlessly. Our closest allies are willing to help Canada meet its most urgent air defense needs, with capabilities that would ensure allied interoperability while protecting our own forces in Baltic deployments. Companies, including Thales, have answered Canada's call for the capability to protect our people and to defend our interests. We remain concerned, however, that Canada's procurement system inhibits the ability to act on some of these offers, not for lack of motivation, but for lack of flexibility. Today, Thales equips the United Kingdom, among our closest allies, with short-range air defense capability to defend against threatening planes, helicopters, and drones. This capability is currently deployed in support of NATO missions. Along with training, this capability has been provided to the Ukrainian Armed Forces, where it has proved an effective system against Russian aggression. It is in Canada's best interest to protect our soldiers well. It is also in Canada's best interest to ensure NATO interoperability within this current context. Canadian air defense capability is both critical to industry, and industry is ready and equipped to serve those who serve with field-proven capability. Today's conflicts won't wait. They move fast and develop almost instantly. Industry and government share responsibility to use every creative means we can to move Canadian capability from the world of delays and deliberations into the hands of our armed forces and NATO allies. Deploying Canadian forces to the Baltics creates an urgent defence and force protection need, and there is immediate and an interoperable solution available. Canada needs to take action. Acting today also provides a transformative opportunity for the development of Canada's ground-based air defence capability of tomorrow. Canada must continue to tap into the promise of new ways of working with industry. There are guideposts of this promise, for example, relational and trust-based contracting, which is already being used today by the Royal Canadian Navy. It offers the potential to maintain continuous capability, incrementally field innovation by design, and incentivize collaboration. In my 20 years of service and 20 years in the industry, this may be the most significant procurement shift I have ever seen, with a great potential to deliver faster and more capable solutions. Perhaps we will turn to it later in the dialogue this morning. In closing, I urge all of us to address Canada's immediate need to acquire air defence capabilities to defend our interests and protect those who serve. Thank you.
Great. Finished early. Wonderful. Mr. Cormier, 5 minutes, please.
Pressure's on me to finish early, too.
Yeah, time.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
By thanking the committee today for calling on the CDA as a witness for your study of Canadian air defense procurement. The Conference of Defense Associations was founded in 1932 and today serves as an umbrella group for 40 member associations who represent over 400,000 active and retired members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Our goal is to foster a facts-based, rational approach to Canada's defense and security policy. Now, for full disclosure, with the committee, I want to mention that the CDA Institute, our sister organization, is, it counts Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Airbus, Pratt & Whitney as past and current clients. However, the bulk of our income is obtained through competitive grants, private donations, and ticket sales to our events, and the above four represent a minute fraction of overall revenues. So, having said that, so the key thing here is we do not have a favored aircraft in this fight, nor would it be appropriate for a think tank like ours, a charity organization, a nonpartisan organization, to take sides. We trust that through the analysis and capability requirements and industrial benefits, the government apparatus is very well equipped to make reasoned decisions. It has been a long-held CDA view that Canada's North American air defenses need to be fully modernized, and a future fighter is a key part of that process. In March 2022, Canada picked the Lockheed Martin F-35 as their preferred bidder to supply the 88 new fighter aircraft. This decision comes late in our view. Indeed, a lot of what we know today about the F-35 we knew already in 2012. The last thing Canada should want to do now is delay any longer. The RCAF and our National Industrial Base have waited long enough. We need a robust defense industrial base in order to deliver the much-needed materiel of the Canadian Armed Forces in a way that is economically sustainable for our country and that delivers high-value jobs to Canadians. Having said that, let's be careful not to forget the B in ITB. Economic benefits are a key outcome of military procurement and the means to sustain it, but they are merely a benefit, not the end goal itself. Delivering the right capabilities for the right price at the right time is the fundamental role of military procurement. If government focuses too strongly on ITBs and loses sight of what the CAF needs, we wind up paying too much for the wrong capabilities that arrive too late. Bureaucratic risk averse procedures are key contributors to rust out. Now, recognizing the need for parliamentary oversight, we think that it should be extended to grant political cover to procurement issues where bureaucrats dare not tread to speed up the process. Now that we have selected the F-35, we should go quickly to contract and make sure that we get the full range of integrated sensors for it to operate at best. Canada also needs to put in place full logistics and support, maintenance, infrastructure, and information technology upgrades and training programs in support of their decision. The F-35 will boost our ability to confront new generations of airborne threats. These threats include cruise missiles, hypersonic weapon systems, ballistic missiles, UAVs, and fractional orbital bombardment systems. The F-35 could not come soon enough, as the war in Ukraine has demonstrated the dangers of hypersonic weapons and suicide drones. We have also witnessed the powerful effects of ultra-modern air defenses on the battlefield. In addition to the F-35, Canada will need a robust ground-based air defense system that includes shoulder-held anti-aircraft missiles and a counter-drone capability. In a future conflict in which Canada were called to enforce a no-fly zone or police the skies over NATO countries, the F-35 would be our most effective platform for such a mission. Now, since SSC was written, the geopolitical environment has rapidly declined. Russia has engaged in a full-scale war in Ukraine, and we have seen distressing levels of escalation in the Indo-Pacific. Vladimir Putin's Russia has become extremely dangerous and unpredictable. It is also our next-door neighbor in the north. Air assets are therefore crucial to protecting our sovereignty. Just last week, American F-16s were scrambled after two Russian Tu-95 Bear H bombers entered the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. So being able to support our allies in NORAD and NATO is not only key to our national sovereignty and security, it's also important as a means whereby a middle power like Canada can help uphold the rules-based order, which is so central to our strategic interest. Our economy and values depend on the rules-based system, and we also depend on our allies to sustain it. In exchange, both need to be able to depend on us. So we must be equipped and ready to do our fair share. Je vais m'arrêter là et je vous invite à ne pas hésiter à me poser.
I'll stop there, and please don't hesitate to ask me questions in either French or English. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Cormier. We'll start with Mrs. Block for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone, and especially to our witnesses. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will start my questioning with Mr. Cormier. The first question I have for you, sir, is do we have a disconnect between what we think our reputation is in the world and what it actually is? And can you comment on this and maybe provide us with some examples?
Yeah, I think there is a disconnect in the sense that much of our national story, we refer to ourselves as the peacekeepers of the world, but in reality, what used to be, I think Canada used to provide 60% of the world's peacekeepers, and now last time I checked, there were 40 peacekeepers that are Canadian out of 120,000 peacekeepers on the planet. So we're definitely not where we like to think we are. Just recently, the French ambassador came out in the National Post and called us on it, said we weren't present in peacekeeping the way that one of our closest allies expecting us to be. Also went so far as to say that we were trying to hitch a first-class ticket using a third-class ticket. So I think there's something there to be said that it's not just the French ambassador who is, he's saying this out loud, but in my job, I meet with a lot of military attachés, our allies, some of our ambassadors, and this is the kind of stuff that you hear all the time in camera. And so what we heard from the French ambassador last week is just saying out loud what a lot of other people are thinking.
Thank you very much. I'm going to follow up on some of the remarks you made in your statement. You stated bureaucratic risk-adverse procedures are a key contributor to rust out. Can you further comment on that?
I think if you look at what we're using right now in the Canadian Armed Forces, it kind of speaks for itself. Netherlands, old tanks, old British submarines. We're looking at old Australian jets. We have this way of shopping at the thrift shop and getting what we paid for here in Canada. I think if we're going to be a G7 country, we have to stop having this preference for a Dollarama approach. And remember that, how would I say, we're the 9th largest economy on the planet. You look at what Australia is doing in the meantime, and they're the 15th largest economy on the planet. The Canadian economy is 30% larger than the Australian economy, and we go around telling ourselves we can't afford to get this equipment and be out there in the world. And the reality is, if the Australians can afford it, so can we. It's just a question of will, political will, and consensus building amongst parties, and using the podium, and I'm speaking to politicians here, we can't just go to the electorate as though they were focus groups and deliver whatever they want. I think you go back to, and I mean, full disclosure, I'm a professor of political philosophy and war theory, not an expert on costing or ITBs. But I remember teaching courses on Plato and classical political theorists, and one thing that keeps coming up is the role politicians have in being the educators of society, being able to go to the electorate and educate them on the needs and requirements so that they get informed and that together we build a national consensus on Canada's role in the world.
Chair, how much time do I have? 2.5 minutes. Okay, great. So just perhaps a good segue to that is another comment that you made in your opening remarks where you stated, recognizing the need for parliamentary oversight, we think it should be extended to grant political cover to procurement issues where bureaucrats dare not tread to speed up the process. So when you talk about political will and perhaps the role of parliamentarians, what would you recommend to give the oversight that we do not have as parliamentarians?
Well, I think parliamentarians have the necessary oversight, but don't always use it as much as they could. What I mean by that is if we are worried that public servants are too risk-averse, maybe we need, or are slowing down the process to avoid risk. Maybe they need political cover. Maybe all-party consensus is a way to go back to the the people who are working in these departments and giving them support. I think that when Cabinet and Parliament stick together and say, we need something soon, there's a way to get it quickly. The best example is in Afghanistan. We needed equipment. It was delivered. We were able to conduct our operations. Let's continue doing that.
Thank you. 1 minute. Okay, following up on that. You also declared that the March 2022 decision to pick up the Lockheed Martin F-35 as the preferred bidder to supply 88 new fighter aircraft, and I quote, comes late in our view. Indeed, a lot of what we know now about the F-35 today, we knew already in 2012. The last thing Canada should want now is to delay any longer. The RCAF and our national industrial base have waited long enough. Full disclosure, I was on the OGO committee back in 2012, and so I recall many of these conversations and the launch of this project. So what are the costing impacts of these delays, and what are the impacts on the industry?
For that, I'm not going to give you a direct number, because I'd have to take my calculator out and probably get it all wrong.
And you only have 15 seconds anyways.
But no, I mean, the main thing is some companies are packing up their offices, leaving Canada, because there are more serious markets out there. They quit mid-process on bids, and when this happens, you wind up with fewer competitors in the game. It's not good for the buyer.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Ms. Thompson, 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, before I begin the questions, I would like to ask for 10 minutes at the end of this meeting to be able to discuss Thursday's meeting, specifically bringing...
Yeah, I'm aware from Mr. Housefather already. Thank you.
So we're good for the 10 minutes at the end?
We'll see how we're doing for time.
So I'd like to push a little on this. I think it's important for us to be able to have the conversation simply because witnesses are coming Thursday.
I realize that, Mrs. Thompson, but it depends on our second hour. We have hard stop at 1 o'clock, and I don't wish to take away time from Mr. John's witnesses, but we'll see in the second hour. But we will try.
Thank you. Mr. Pogue, please. Could you please share with the current project manager, or share how the current project management style at your company helps in gaining successful business contracts with the private sector and government?
Within the company, the project management process we have are sort of well-defined and based on project management principles and PMP and the professional certification of project managers. Principally, that drives the way in which they develop a work breakdown structure or the work that we're going to do, the way costing people help cost it, to make sure that the program can be effectively delivered to the end state, and as well as managing the day-to-day interaction with all the stakeholders, frequently suppliers, as well as obviously the customer, whether it be the Navy, the Army, or the Air Force, or whomever, the Coast Guard in some cases.
Thank you. As well, if you could share with this committee the business relationships between TELUS Canada and the federal government.
By business relationships, I'm going to assume you mean the major contracts we have underway today. So the major contracts underway today would be through the Aegis Arctic Offshore Patrol Joint Supply Ship In-Service Support Contract for the Royal Canadian Navy. We are an electronic systems integrator as part of the NSS to the individual shipyards that are building the parts of the National Shipbuilding Strategy. We serve the Canadian Army with some software development applications, as well as a recent contract with the Tactical Control Radar. Another major customer of ours is the Coast Guard, where we deliver bridge support to the electronic systems integration for the bridges that they operate from when they take those vessels to sea.
Thank you. Mr. Cormier, to you now. As Executive Director of the Conference of Defence Associations, can you tell us about your role and your organization's affiliation with Canadian aerospace industry?
I guess the only relationship is sponsorships that exist between the two organizations and their participation at some of the events that we put on.
Thank you. And I'm not actually, probably back to you, Mr. Cormier. On October 3rd, 2022, an expert discussion institute contributors discussed the challenges of Canadian procurement, including the idea of giving the Department of National Defence full responsibility over procurement. In your view, should Canada have a single organization responsible for procurement, and if so, which organization would that be?
Well, there's no simple answer in the sense that it depends what powers you give to that organization and how much work you demand of it. It can take more time or less time. It really depends on the political oversight and the systems in place. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that if we're going to be using 4 or 5 different organizations looking at this, we need to make sure that they're all appropriately funded so that there's no bottleneck in one place while people are waiting in the backlog with other departments. So I think that's the bigger question.
And again, and the same, the same line of conversation, in terms of centralization, are the levels of fiscal authority delegated to the Department of National Defence and Canadian Coast Guard for procurement reasonable? And if not, what should change?
I think I'm not the right person to answer that one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Then I guess back to you, Mr. Progue. Do you have knowledge of what challenges your industry members face in Canadian military procurement bids?
I think it's the challenges I think all industry, including TELUS, face is predictability and timeliness. I mean, and anything we can do to remove ambiguity. Industry makes decisions based on clarity, and they struggle with ambiguity. But businesses can adapt to almost any situation. And those adaptations may not be always what we might want to have happen, but they will adapt. And so I think the key to me would be predictability and timeliness.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, how am I doing for time?
You have 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Progue, back to you. As Executive Director of TELUS Canada, can you tell us about your role and how your company contributes to Canadian aerospace industry, and how does your company deal with Canadian military procurement?
So we deal with Canadian military procurement through the methods available to us today. And so we would engage in procurement when they have workshops. We would engage in open forums. We would engage in responding to requests for information and to multiple versions of RFPs, requests for proposals. We also engage in terms of our own investment that we make in Canada. Maybe I'll use just an example of that. An investment in the project we call TELUS Synergy is an investment we've made using our AI at Centec initiative out of Montreal, which is an AI center of excellence, to help reach out to small and medium-sized companies in Canada, somewhat reflective of the ITB concept, and help them bridge that gap between small business to medium, sometimes between medium business to large business, and help them reach a global export market through the 68 countries that TELUS operates in. So we would engage on all levels, because I think to be part of the Canadian defence community, you need to engage on all levels.
Thank you very much.
you.
6
Thank
minutes
you.
on the dot. Mrs. Vinola for 6, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to both of our witnesses for being with us here today. It's important for me and for us, and it's important to understand the process surrounding the procurement process and to improve it as well. Mr. Pogue, in 2011, TELUS received a contract, and it was cancelled in 2015. Last year, a new contract for radar was awarded to TELUS Canada. My question is, can you tell us why the contract in 2015 was abandoned? Why it was abandoned in 2015?
Thank you for the question. I wasn't at TELUS during that time frame, so I can't offer you much insight as to the nature of the contract at that particular time. What I can tell you is with the existing contract for the tactical control radar, we are working with a number of suppliers. We are working closely with the government to ensure that what we deliver will meet the Royal Canadian Air Force needs. So it is a balancing act.
Et, bon,
Well, I understand that you can't talk about that, but my next question is a bit of a touchy one, like we say in English, but there aren't any ill intentions here. Do you think that behind the decision in 2015 to abandon the contract for radar was a political Was it more politically motivated than on requirements? Because now we have a new contract for radar.
It's not a touchy question. It's a worthwhile question. I don't think I could answer it in any, honestly, I don't have any awareness. It's difficult to sort of take on a hypothetical without having been there at the time. Again, I will only stress that today we're moving forward with a program that I believe will deliver effective capability to the Royal Canadian Air Force.
Moi, j'imagine que vous pouvez pas.
Well, I assume then that you can't compare the contract from 2011 and today's contract because you weren't there then.
Can I compare the two contracts? Again, I would want to go back and take a look at them. I would want people to look at them. If it's important to the chair that we compare those two contracts, I certainly would take it under an exercise to provide a written response. Beyond that, to speak to a contract from 2014-15, it's virtually impossible for me to do that.
Si c'est possible, j'aimerais avoir.
Well, if it is possible, I would like to have a written comparison of the contracts, please, if that's possible. Now, your team was behind the Rafale aircraft and withdrew because the requirements with respect to interoperability and intelligence exchange were difficult to meet. Do you think that because France is not part of NORAD or the Five Eyes group, do you think that that was a disadvantage with respect to the replacement fighter jet choice?
Speak specifically to the hypothetical of whether that was a disadvantage or not. I mean, the only thing I could say you would have to do is look at the requirements and the operational need of those requirements and then assess your decisions based on that. As I mentioned, industry will adapt to requirements. They will adapt to what is the operational demand. Beyond that, I would be purely speculating, and I don't think it's worthwhile for this committee to have my speculation.
Parfait, merci. Monsieur Cormier, tant pour le renouvellement.
Mr. Cormier, when it comes to the replacement of the fighter jets and the radar, the federal government went back on decisions that had already been made and started the procurement process over again. What are the repercussions of that decision on the national situation at present? Answer. Well, Canada is never on its own. We're always cooperating with our counterparts. Now, I'm not saying that we're more worried or it's more worrisome with respect to China and Russia because we didn't proceed then. But there are F-35s in the sky. They're working. Is this the right aircraft for us? It seems that the Allies are focusing on the fact that they've invested there, whereas we haven't. I think that it's starting to weigh in the balance. If we want to be involved in discussions, then we need to invest more and be a bit more serious in our approach. We learned about issues in the newspaper, and we're not invited to certain conversations, so that's the result of that. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, je pense que j'ai terminé.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have more difficult questions after the break.
Thanks. Mr. Pogue, if you would provide that in writing as Mrs. Vinola asked. Mr. Johns for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it. And just, you know, we've seen what's happening with climate emergencies right now in Canada. We just saw obviously the hurricane on the East Coast, forest fires in BC last year where there was hundreds of military and equipment deployed to British Columbia, the flooding here in Ottawa. And right now there's smoky skies still in BC. People can barely breathe. And I think we've had 2 millimeters of rain where I live, and normally we've had a few hundred millimeters of rain by now in the same period of time from August to October. The military is going to be called upon more and more for climate emergencies, and firefighting is going to be a big part of that component. I have Colson Enterprises aviation in my riding. They do a lot of firefighting around the world, Australia, Argentina, the United States, you name it. They're one of the largest global aerial firefighting companies, especially night firefighting in the world. Can you speak maybe, Mr. Cormier, a little bit about the need for extreme weather considerations when it comes to the design of our military equipment and maybe some thoughts on just, where I'm going with this?
Oh, it's a tough question, and it's one of the key things that we hear from the Chief of Defense Staff right now when he takes these matters to the public. The Canadian Armed Forces is a limited instrument, and as you keep pulling back on domestic security issues and domestic operations, you don't necessarily have the capacity to do external work with our allies. So it is a very tough balancing act, and there are a variety of ways forward. I mean, there are talks of creating a civilian force or using the reserve force in a way that's a little bit different from the regular forces for domestic operations. There are ways forward, but they require, how would I say, we usually talk of whole of government when we look at all of Ottawa, and we call it that whole of government. I want to take it to the next level. We need whole of government pan-Canada style, where we go in and bring the provinces and the mayors to have this conversation. How do we create a much more resilient Canada so that when Fiona hits, you don't have someone going out there and saying, we need 1,000 troops without necessarily explaining what exactly those troops are going to be used for. It's more of a political message to make a demand for 1,000 troops without having a list of requirements of what that's going to look like on the ground. What we need is a local capacity, and we need to pay for it. We need to find ways to transition resources from the federal, from the provincial levels to the city so that they build infrastructure that's resilient, that they have local capacity and funding groups, whether it's the Red Cross or the St. John's Ambulance or Team Rubicon. There are a lot of organizations that could do much more work on these matters to help take a bit of the pressure off the Canadian Armed Forces. So that's one way to look at it. I hope that answers a little bit your question.
And I think just looking at what equipment we have, the Americans, they, I know that they have firefighting capabilities. They use C-130s. They put actually firefighting tanks on their CH-47s and Blackhawks, and that's common practice down there. Do you see opportunities for us in Canada to, create a pan-Canadian kind of role with the military equipment we have, but, also using some of the opportunities just to refit, the existing infrastructure that we've got so that we can work with the provinces and support them in a more efficient and effective way?
I think we wind up putting the cart before the bulls, because you have to ask yourselves, do we want the Canadian military to do more work on domestic operations, or do we want to alleviate the pressures on them? Once that decision is taken and we've built the resiliency across Canada, then we can have that conversation. Having said that, I think there's a lot of capabilities existing in the Canadian Armed Forces that are able to react to emergencies, and that's why we call on them. Whether it's logistics, it's a willing, mobilized, highly effective workforce that's able to do first aids work and so forth, and just having the equipment that's able to carry out medical emergencies. Those are all things that the military is actually quite good at. But there might be other places where you wonder, why is it that we ask the military to cut down trees that have fallen 3 or 4 days after a storm, when in fact there's local companies that are better at it and who could use the resources to rebuild the local economy. So we're actually taking jobs away from local resiliency by having the armed forces do non-emergency work after the emergency has passed. So that's good questions we need to ask ourselves.
So those are great answers, actually, and I really appreciate that. Do you believe that we should be procuring equipment specifically designed for climate emergencies instead of using defense equipment that should be used in other space, in other roles and modes? And Mr. Pogue, you're welcome to jump in as well. I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this as well.
Well, I'll only offer that when I was in the military, I flew C-130s in search and rescue missions, so familiar with what you refer to. I think Yuri's idea of ensuring that we effectively use the existing infrastructure in Canada that's designed to do this as opposed to the military is probably a great balancing act. It creates local jobs, creates local capacity, that local capacity that works in those local communities, understands the community better than someone from outside. I think there's a lot in that suggestion.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that. Like again, Colson's, contracting out there all over the world. They're actually not doing business in Canada, which is one of those typical made in Canada stories. Where they're heroes all around the world, and then we're not using them in the right way. And maybe you can speak about stories like that and more of a pan-Canadian effort.
And I'm going to have to interrupt. I'm going to have to interrupt that story for our next round. Maybe we can get to the next round. Mrs. Cusi, please, for 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur la Présidente, et merci aux témoins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today.
Just make it clear, let's get on the record. Does your organization get any funding from the government?
We don't have any permanent forms of funding with the Canadian government, but we do apply for a variety of different grants through the Mines program with DND. So they are competitive grants open to the Canadian public. So we have applied for them and have obtained them quite regularly in the past few years. We're currently, I think there's 3 grants that we currently hold that we're doing research work on. And the other place where we occasionally get funding is when we host events. Canadian government employees have a tendency to register in great numbers. So at the Ottawa Conference on Defense and Security, I believe that in the past 2 years we've had 20 different government departments present. So we do sell tickets to the government.
No, thank you for that. In your opinion, Monsieur Cormier, what do you think the reasons are for the delay of the signing the F-35 contract currently? Why do you think that signing this contract is being delayed?
So I'm not privy to what exactly is going on behind the scenes, but I will say...
What do you think is going on?
Oh, I'm not going to go too far down the speculative
Oh,
route.
please do.
Oh, but here's what I would say. Any form of delay at this point in the process, to me, is unacceptable. And I say that because there's only one fighter left. We already read the entire ITB's proposition. The value proposition has been studied in the previous phases, and they've been agreed to. And so at this point, we should be going straight to contract. And how would I say this? It's missed opportunities to just get to cut to the chase.
Indeed. My colleague, Mrs. Block, indicated that she had been on this committee previously. This is my first time on this committee, but I feel as though this subject has been around since the first Top Gun movie. As a former diplomat, I have a lot of interest in your comments and responses to my colleague, Mrs. Block, and I wanted to expand upon them a little further. I have the quote here that the F-35 could not come soon enough, as the war in Ukraine has demonstrated the dangers of hypersonic weapons and suicide drones, no doubt. Perhaps you can explain to the committee what we have been deprived of in terms of capability by not having the F-35 currently, and of course, therefore, this technology to share with other nations to defend democracy versus, say, Russia or China, the comparative capability and what we've been deprived of and what we could have contributed had we had this capability, please.
Yeah, so part of it goes back to what I was saying a while ago, where the relationship with our allies is harmed by the fact that we're not paying for the deterrent umbrella that they are providing Canada right now. So that's a big part of the equation. But I mean, the other example where if there were a situation right now that demanded immediate action to enforce a no-fly zone somewhere on the planet, there's an emergency. If Canada were to send the equipment we currently have and the capabilities we currently have, we might wind up in a situation where we're not providing the right level of cover. Civilians could be killed in the process. Canadian Armed Force members could be killed in the process. We're not as equipped as we would want to be if it were necessary to have this no-fly zone created.
Thank you for that. And as well, I appreciate your reference to our historic contributions to peacekeeping. As I mentioned, at Foreign Affairs at 125 Sussex, I always enjoyed going past Pearson, the bust and his medals, something very significant for this nation, which we have lost. In your opinion, do you feel there could be further delays in the F-35 purchase?
I don't think there's any reason for further delays. I expect that the next phase could go very quickly if there's will to actually get to that place. I'm just happy that the decision was made. I think it's a really good it's a good place where we have to be. And once this decision is made, I think the reality is that Canadian Armed Forces have been depleting their capabilities for 20 years now in terms of there's perhaps more. We haven't capitalized adequately the Canadian Armed Forces, and there's currently holes throughout the entire enterprise. So I think that now that we've done the F-35, I don't think we should keep harping on about it. I think we should quickly get it over with and start thinking, okay, what are the other elements of capabilities that the Canadian Armed Forces needs now? Let's move to those.
Thank
and
you,
then
Mr. Cormier.
create that tendency to move fast on them.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Cormier. Mr. Baines for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. My first question is for Mr. Pogue. Can you please share how the current project management style at your company helps in gaining successful business contracts with the private sector and government?
As noted earlier, I think the project management style we deploy would be to sort of outreach to all stakeholders. So we certainly focus on the engagements we get with the military, where they do open forums of what sort of requirements they have, what sort of expectations they have for the future. We respond to requests for information. We respond to multiple requests for proposals, all part of the engagement. And then once we're into a contract, we manage those contracts very closely with the customer and the additional stakeholders. Sometimes there's industrial technical benefits involved, all as part of sort of a end-to-end comprehensive way of treating the delivery of capability to the men and women who serve.
Thank you. And on September 8th, the Thales announced its intention to expand into its North American presence, having hired up to 1,000 new employees with the intent of hiring 300 more. How many of these jobs will end up in Canada?
It's hard to speculate exactly how many jobs will end up in Canada. I think what you're seeing in that announcement is Thales's significant commitment and investment in the digital transformation that we're seeing across the commercial sector and across many militaries. And Thales is very well positioned with previous acquisitions to deliver promising results around digital transformation. The other place where I think we're seeing significant growth is around the use of augmented intelligence to help effectively deal with the large data problems to make more effective decisions. So those are areas where I see us, increasing our number of people that are part of the Thales family. Those programs exist in Canada too, and so there's certainly an opportunity to expand upon the presence we have in Canada as those programs come to fruition.
Is that all across Canada, or more based in specific regions within Canada?
The nature of the way we service the military customer would be all across Canada because we are serving from coast to coast to coast in some respects. In some cases where it's the digital capability and growth around commercial and banking services, that will tend to be more province by province. So it depends on what particular domain we're talking about.
Okay, and what's your position on Canada's decision to pursue the negotiations with Lockheed Martin to purchase the F-35?
I think to Yuri's point earlier, there was a competition, there was an exercise, and they've made a decision based on what they believe Canada's requirements are. And now it's time to move forward and deliver capability.
Okay, and to Mr. Cormier, to what extent can industry predict government procurement needs without annual updates to defense investment plans?
Well, I find that the best way to create that flow of information is to continually have conversations between academia, the business sector, and the Canadian Armed Forces and parliamentarians. At the Conference of Defense Associations, we try to create these fora where these conversations can happen. And I think that the real solution, a lot of the security gaps need to be known in order for innovation to deal with them. But I think it works both ways. I think capabilities are determined by what kind of technology is out there. So the more we get conversations going, the better.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have one more for Mr. Pogue. When it comes to diversity, how's Thales working to promote diversity within its business?
I'd say very proud of the diversity, inclusion, and diversity initiatives from our CEO on down. It actually is a metric that we measure. We all have signed on to a commitment to those programs. While there's not a one-size-fits-all diversity and inclusion policy, we are deploying it as best we can in all the regions we operate. And I think that the commitment and that effort will make a difference in the long term. So very proud of what we're trying to do.
Thank you. And how much time do I have?
You have 30 seconds, Mr. Baines.
Well, thank you to our witnesses. That is all the questions I have for today.
Go to Mrs. Vinola for 2.5, then Mr. Johns for 2.5, and then we're going to break to set up for the next round. Mrs. Vinola.
Merci beaucoup.
Well, thank you very much. My question is for both of you, Mr. Pogue, Mr. Cormier. Air defense investments for aircraft, radar, are significant investments. I'd like you to tell us about the spin-offs or benefits flowing from them, not only for companies, but also for the overall picture, for research, studies, companies, as I mentioned, and social benefits, if there are any. Well, I would start by saying that when you go to Montreal and Mirabel, you can see just how important the industry is. The way the procurement system is designed is that there's a lot of encouragement for research, and a lot of points are attributed to research on the project. So these are things that can serve Canadian society and Quebec society well. We also have to remember that we can't simply procure something and then have nothing for 10 years. It's not a boom or bust type of situation. Quebec companies in the aviation sector need to continue working on an ongoing basis.
The boom or bust concept. I think these large-scale programs create a unique opportunity to develop a next generation of engineers. And those engineers will work on those programs and the staff to work with them, and they'll go on to other things. And those other things might be their own companies. And that ecosystem that we build avoids that boom and bust cycle because they'll move into export markets or they'll do different things. Particularly some of the investment that's coming to Canada, the $40 million I referred to earlier in R&D, in augmented intelligence, in quantum computing, things we're directly investing in that are part of those next generation of programs. Those things will be done by Canadians in Canada, and they will reach a global market from Canada.
Merci. Rapidement, ça se peut encore une question pour vous deux.
Now, quickly, a question for you, and I've only got 2.5 minutes, so perhaps you'll have to reply in writing, but a twofold question, if I may. How can we improve the procurement process, first of all, and secondly, is there a procurement process that could serve as an example, even if we needed to adapt it to our realities?
I'm afraid, gentlemen, I'm going to have to interrupt because we're at the 2.5 minutes, but if you could provide it in writing. I think
work we're seeing with the relational contract under Aegis, which I think is a promising milestone.
Well, and I think Thales, being around the world, certainly could share with us who's perhaps doing it better. Thanks very much. Mr. Johns, for 2.5 minutes, please.
I guess I'll ask both of you this. Mr. Cormier, start with you. Do you believe Canada should have a single organization responsible for procurement? And if so, which organization do you think it should be?
Similar to what I said a while ago, it's not so much how many procurement organizations there are, it's how well they work together. So if it's 4 or 1, it depends what kind of powers you give them and what kind of resources you give them to make sure the processes go quickly and effectively. And I think right now we tend to go towards the fact that there's duplication or there might be inefficiencies built into the four group model. But that could be resolved within this model or within another model. It's a question of creating that political oversight, giving a little bit of room to breathe to some of these public servants who are risk-averse because they feel they need to be risk-averse. So there are a variety of solutions forward, and I'm not going to suggest that there's one that's better than the other.
Mr. You talked a little bit about diversity earlier, and I'd love to hear more about your company in terms of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, called Action 92, where it's very explicit, calling for meaningful consultation, building respectful relationships, ensuring that Aboriginal peoples have equitable access to jobs, and that you're providing education for management and staff on the history of Aboriginal peoples. Can you speak a little bit about any work that your company is doing in this area, and maybe some areas where you need to improve and work on?
I would say there's always going to be areas where you can improve and work on, inevitably. But some areas where we are actively engaged is with the Indigenous community in Canada to help them be part of the defence system. The Synergy program I referred to earlier for small and medium-sized businesses can engage with them and help them cross that chasm into global markets. And as we see expanding our footprint in Canada, we fully expect it will be done in concert with the Indigenous peoples, to the point where I can imagine a day in the future when our chief engineer is from that community, and he or she grew up working in TALUS programs.
Have you read the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action?
Yes, I have.
Great. And do you believe that it's something that in your company that it should be, posted in the staff room, part of your policies, called Action 92, that it should be at the front and center of your company's operations?
I think it should
quick
be part.
Answer.
Sorry?
Or you have 15 seconds for a quick
I think it should be part of the way we think about things we do every single day. And if posting it helps us think about it, then it should be posted.
Do you think it should be embedded in your policies?
I think it's embedded in our policy by virtue of the diversity and inclusion policies we have across the group. So it would be included already by virtue of that approach.
Thanks, Mr. Pogue. I'm afraid that's time, Mr. Johns. Mr. Pogue, Mr. Cormier, thank you for joining us today. Again, if there's anything you wish to share, please send it to the clerk. I think there was issues, Mr. Cormier, you were going to get to us on suggestions on the F-35 procurement, but I'd certainly be very interested in your thoughts as well. You touched on it on, I guess, de-risking or creating a culture that's less risk-adverse in our procurement. I'd certainly love to see that as well. Again, gentlemen, thanks for being with us, and we are suspended for about 10 minutes to set up for our next witnesses. Thank you. Back in session. Welcome witnesses to part 2 of meeting number 35 of Government Operations and Estimates, as I call it, the mighty OGO. We'll have we have several witnesses today. We're going to go from 12 to about 12:45, and then we're going to stay public, and we're going to discuss the schedule going forward. We have witnesses today from the Professional Institute of Public Services of Canada. We have Jennifer Carr, the president, Eva Henshaw, vice president, and then from the Public Service Alliance, we have Michelle Garash, the National Political Action Officer, Liam McCarthy, the Director of Negotiations and Programs Branch, and Howie West. And we're going to start with 5-minute opening from Mr. McCarthy. We are short of time, so I ask that you do keep it close to 5 or before 5, but not after. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. McCarthy. Then we'll hear from Jennifer Carr.
I'll do my best. There's lots to say, right, on this important topic. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to address the committee. The PSAC is the largest union in the federal public service, representing over 230,000 workers, the majority of which are in the federal public service. So let me begin by saying that the strategic policy review announced in the last budget must include unions to determine how best to provide public services and not ways to offload the responsibilities to the private sector. There has been an ideological drive towards contracting out that is not evidence-based nor in the best interest of Canadians. As an example of it not being in the best interest of Canadians, in late 2020, PSAC published a report showing that contracting out of cleaning services at D&D can cost 35% more. D&D is spending on those contracts alone was $68 million more than if it had done the work in-house. We know it is only a sample of what is really going on across all departments and agencies. The procurement process to contract out work favors corporate secrecy over the rights of Canadians to know how funds are spent and how services are managed. In our examination of the privatization of the public sector work, we have submitted dozens of ATIP requests for documents that we know exist, but with limited success. This lack of transparency shows the government values its relationships with large corporations over the public's right to know. It's also important to point out that the Public Service Employment Act and the Employment Equity Act exist to make sure that the public service is representative of the population it serves, and contracting out undermines those very important efforts. Jobs that are contracted out are more precarious than jobs in the public service, in the public sector. An all-party report on precarious work was tabled in this very House at the Human Resources Committee in 2019, and it called on the government to review human resources policies and budgeting practices to ensure that they are incentivizing hiring employees on indeterminate contracts. It's time for the government to heed its committee's advice on that front. Across the departments and agencies, we see a wrong-headed preference to offload management and human resource responsibilities, and that has contributed to this problem. So just to run through a couple of examples of some of the problems associated with contracting out, Veterans Affairs Canada has a $570 million contract for rehabilitation services that will transfer the work of case managers to a profit-making corporation that was established just to obtain the contract. Their priority is to make money and not to serve veterans. Services to veterans and their families will suffer, and the role of case managers, the key to support veterans trying to navigate the system, will be undermined and reduced. We are already seeing concerns about the veterans' personal information being shared with private contractors without their consent. Canadians who call 1-800-O-Canada looking for help with important life situations such as unemployment, sickness, maternity, and parental leave benefits, it's unlikely that they know that they aren't speaking to a Government of Canada employee. They're talking to a precarious worker, paid a low wage, and with no benefits, no job security, and no real connection to the very department that the caller is seeking help and information from. At CFBA Comox recently, new buildings were added to the base's infrastructure without appropriate detention being paid to staffing and facility needs. The added work made it impossible for the existing staff complement to meet the maintenance needs. So now the base has contracted out that work to the private sector instead of staffing up to meet those requirements. Another example is the requirements of the abilities of the government's ability to fulfill access to information requests. and those requests are quite extensive. And yet, in our very submission to the review of ATIP legislation last year, we were able to show that understaffing and contracting out of the work of ATIP officers has resulted in unacceptable time lags and inconsistencies. And also, to give one more example, one would expect that customs and immigration duties at Canada's airports would be performed by CBSA employees. Yet, at Pearson Airport, as an example, many security and service-oriented duties, such as escorting travelers, answering phones, and monitoring the needs of clients, are now contracted out to Garda World. So, what we're recommending is the following. The government's default premise should be public sector delivery instead of contracting out, and that commitment should be further reflected in the public sector collective agreements, which we're negotiating currently. The government needs better metrics to including tracking, contracting out, and use of temporary agencies. The government should audit all current contracts and require justification and business cases for all use of contractors and temporary agencies. There needs to be staffing envelopes into every program so that when they so that they have the proper. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Your
5 minutes is up. If you'd like to send the rest of your comments to the clerk, it will be distributed to the committee. Thanks very much. And Ms. Carr, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. As noted, my name is Jennifer Carr. I am the president of the Professional Institute of the Public Service of Canada, and I am accompanied by Vice President Eva Henshaw. The Institute represents over 65,000 public service professionals, and most of our members work for the federal public government. Years of unchecked spending by the government departments on contracting out has created a shadow public service of consultants and temporary staff operating alongside the government workforce. Contracting out means higher costs and lower quality of services for Canadians. There's less transparency, less accountability, and there's a loss of institutional knowledge. When work is outsourced, the related skills and expertise leave the public service when the contract ends. The real cost of contracting out is way too high. We have wasted money, we have poor hiring practices, and we erode the capacity and safety concerns. The government, according to the Carleton University Research Project, has spent an estimated $15 billion last fiscal year on contracts across the core public service departments and agencies. Our members, especially the 20,000 IT professionals, are calling out the government for their over-reliance on contracting out practices. The Institute has filed over 2,500 grievances where work was outsourced rather than assigned to already existing expertise inside the government. We have to ask why. From our research, between 2011 and 2021, the federal government outsourced over $21 billion in IT work to IT consultants, management consultants, and temporary help contractors. Spending on personnel outsource increased from $1 billion in 2011 to nearly $2.2 billion in 2018, an increase of more than 113%. When contractors are hired, it skirts all internal hiring practices and the goals the government has, including regional development goals, bilingualism, and equality and equity issues. Canadians cannot afford any more failed outsourced IT projects. We only have to look at the disastrous Phoenix Pay system as a glaring example. From our research last fiscal year, we saw $2.3 billion spent on information technology service contracts, while at the same time, the government spent $1.85 million on its own IT workforce. Bottom line is they spend more on contracts than they do on public servants that deliver vital IT services. I want to share with you two clear examples of how this breaks down, how a contractor costs more than hiring a federal public service. At the Department of National Defense, they hired one IT architect. The cost, $360,000 per year. This contract repeated for over 8 years. The equivalent public service, including pension costs of over 17%, would be $148,000 a year. This difference is $1.5 million just for this one resource alone. At Shared Service Canada, 3 resources, IT resources, for a contract of 5 years was $14.1 million. This contract was tendered and posted for another 4 years. This would be an equivalent of 3 public servants with the pension cost of 17% calculated already of $1.85 million. So the difference of this contract to the public purse was over $12 million. IT technology is not the only profession that is seeing high numbers of costly contracting services. The federal government spent $2.1 billion on contracted out health services. With retention and recruitment an ongoing issue, the federal government has begun using contracting out of private nurse employment agencies as a Band-Aid solution for years. They're parachuting in nursing staff on a temporary basis that leaves patients in remote and isolated First Nations communities, which is a role for federal public servants, without consistency or quality of care that they deserve. There is no doubt that this could be far more cost effective if we invest in the fully funded, permanent public sector solution. This opens the door to outright privatization and what should be a publicly delivered healthcare for First Nations communities. We need urgent plans that meets the needs of the Canadian population, northern population, and gives healthcare workers who care for these populations the support and resources they need to do their jobs. So our call to action: each one of us has a stake in the fight against outsourcing. This is about fairness. It's about giving Canadians reliable services, and it's about stopping the waste on outsourced projects like Phoenix. We need to modernize our hiring policies to create efficient timelines for hiring.
Ms. Carr, I'm afraid I have to
easier.
cut you off there. If you could just, again, like the others, if you wish to
They
submit
are
anything in
already
writing. Wonderful. We're going to start with 5 minutes with Ms. Cusi, please. 6 minutes, sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to all of our witnesses for being here today. I checked National Newswatch this morning, as I do every morning at 6 a.m., and the top story was Ottawa's pandemic hiring boom adds billions to federal payroll. And specifically, it mentions that there was a 12% increase in federal employment in 2 years, 35,000 new jobs over the last 2 years. That's over 5% a year. That outpaces both the private sector as well as the economy. Now, when we look at where those jobs were added to, ESDC, which is responsible for passport processing, and Service Canada added 8,500 positions, as well as Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, which has been dealing with the crisis in Afghanistan and Ukraine, along with a huge backlog of visa applications, hired 1,750 people. So we have these incredible expenditures. We have this addition of employees, and I should add here another note within the article that I have out of CBC that states, in emailed statements, PHAC and ESDC both said that more than half of their new hires were non-permanent positions, while CRA noted that its workforce rises and falls with the tax season. So based upon the dismal numbers that we received this morning of extreme expenditure, yet poor delivery of services to Canadians, how should we be using, or not using in this case, outsourcing to better deliver value for money for Canadians, please? And I'll start with Madam Carr, please, if you could first respond to that.
Yes, thank you for your question. And of course, you do see that those are areas, the hiring areas where we have seen lack and stability in the public service. But I'd like to counter that and say that these are because of years of under-resourcing and cuts that actually happened way before this time happened. It's my understanding, of course, with the passport situation, that the public servants had been crying out to the government to put proper resourcing behind passports, because knowing that when we implemented the 10-year rule that there would be a crunch for people with new passports, making that way forward. So this is basically what I call catch up after years of undersourcing, of people getting by and doing more with less. When there is a cry for outsourcing or for services. Some of it can be outsourced, but in this fact, public servants need to do passport applications, and they need to do the vital work of checking and making sure that applications are done in a correct and fair and transparent process.
Yeah, thank you for that, Madam Carr. And as well, I'll say, previously in another life as a consular officer, I did complete that passport training myself, so I know how rigorous it is. But what I think you're referring to, Madam Carr, is another quote from the former parliamentary budgetary officer, and I'm going to read that here, and I think it's very much in alignment with some of the comments that you've made here today, and perhaps you can support this quote and perhaps even provide more information around it. But it goes back to your comments about the Band-Aids. But this quote for me was incredibly alarming, and I quote from former parliamentary budgetary officer Kevin Page. He says, "There is no strategic human resource plan, for the Government of Canada. There's no evidence whether or not we've made really good hiring decisions with the significant increase in the complement of the public service." No human resource plan, Madam Carr. It's unbelievable to me after 7 years in government that this government would not determine how to effectively determine the human resource organizational structure of a single department, never mind all of these shortfalls that we're seeing. Can you comment on this quote, please, and perhaps expand upon your statement in the opening about the necessity to stop with the Band-Aids to get value for money for Canadians through better organization, structuring, and planning from our federal government?
Yes, thank you for that comment. And for sure, that is one of the things. I'm going to pass it over to my VP, Eva Henshaw, to talk about her work with the Chief Information Officer and why we are so short-staffed and what is happening. Eva?
Thank you. I know that the Chief of Information Office is currently looking at the resources of IT, and they have stated that we are short by 8,000 employees in the IT offices. And that alone is quite alarming, since we only have 17,000 approximately IT workers across Canada. It doesn't surprise me to see those quotes, because when you look at the budgets and the plans that come up from the departments, the overall resource plans for human resources of the public service, they are not there. They do not want to increase their footprint of public servants. For whatever reason, we're not sure, but we do see their plans on other budgets that are increased on a yearly basis, and in which they're able to contract out resources through those budgets and not the public servant budgets.
I'm afraid that's your time, Ms. Cusi. Ms. Thompson, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses. And actually, I'm going to ask the same question to Ms. Carr and also Mr. McCarthy. Beginning perhaps with you, Ms. Carr. Departments are required to consider internal staff before outsourcing a project, but you say that this doesn't happen enough. Could those make or break policies be strengthened, and if so, how? And then Mr. McCarthy, afterwards to you.
Thank you. And that goes into the 2,500 grievances that we have on the table right now. These are not areas where we don't have the expertise in-house. These are not projects that our public servants are not prepared to deliver and to perform. So on the ground in the capacity, our members are seeing contracts being placed for outside workers to come in and do the exact same job, sit next to them, do the same project, and are crying that this is a public servant job. It has to do with the hiring practice. It also has to do with the deprofessionalization of HR role within the public service. So they took away the HR resources and they left hiring up to managers. And when a professional like a IT or an engineer who has no expertise in hiring, it's much easier to put a contract together with an outside agency to say hire what I need versus to come up with a criteria to hire within, especially in the Department of National Defense. And I don't have the actual numbers right now. We are seeing a reliance on what is called internal contracting out to DCC, Defense Construction Canada, who is way beyond extended their mandate to provide services to the Department of National Defense.
Thank you. And I'll go to Mr. McCarthy. Thank you.
I'll make a quick comment and I'll turn it over to Howie West. But just to say that there is a pervasive culture inside of senior management towards contracting out as a, it's often viewed as a bit of a panacea in terms of ways of delivering public services. So that'll be a challenge even with policy direction change, is to reverse that particular culture. But I'll ask Howie West to make some more specific comments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Liam. Mr. Chair and Madam. The problem is quite straightforward, really. There are lots of constraints around how contracting is done. But as you realized from your session last week with departmental heads, there's absolutely no constraints around the decision to make or buy. And that's a long-lasting practice. So because there are no constraints around that decision, people tend to buy more than make. And there are internal rewards for that practice in terms of taxes if you overextend your salary wage envelope. And not only does that have a financial impact on a department manager who is thinking about something that needs to be done, it also has a psychological impact, because if you know that the organization is taxing you if you hire as opposed to actually contract, then you tend to do what the organization tends to want. So there's a systemic failure there, and that's been brewing for about 20 or 30 years since new public management came in. And
thank
there's
you.
an ideological problem.
Thank you. I'd love to get another question in to both sides, so I'm sorry to cut you off, but time is short. Do you support the plan to phase in a requirement that 5% of federal contracts go to Indigenous businesses, and what challenge does that policy face? And again, Ms. Carr, to you first, and then to Mr. McCarthy. Thank you.
Certainly when it comes to diversity and inclusion and making sure that, there's a benefit to all populations in Canada, I do support that. I do think, though, what will happen is that it was not going to stop contracting out. And in fact, you might have what I call tokenism. You'll have big firms hiring people who have First Nations experience or, somebody on their board, but it will not change. These contracts are $1 million contracts, and to make sure that they are actually in the hands of First Nations people, I believe might be a big challenge.
Sure. I mean, of course, as a union, we're very much in support of greater role of Indigenous communities and working through how services are delivered for Indigenous communities. And we've been very active in terms of some of the transfers that have happened in the past around education and healthcare. And there's a lot of important questions to work through in that regard. But obviously, in terms of contracting, there would be, sort of devil in the details kind of issues there. But absolutely, we're always interested in furthering the interests of Indigenous communities. Thank you.
Thank you. And still the same theme to Ms. Carr first and then Mr. McCarthy. What sort of special expertise does outsourcing let the government access that it doesn't have in-house?
Yeah. I'm going to interrupt here. There's only 14 seconds, so perhaps you can put that in writing to the committee?
They definitely could.
Thanks. And Mrs. Vinola for 6 minutes, please.
Monsieur le Président.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McCarthy, Ms. Carr. I had the impression that you didn't have enough time to finish your opening statement. Could you provide us with that information in writing? Because what I was hearing was extremely interesting. I'd also like to give you an additional minute to each of you to add some additional information that you couldn't provide during your opening remarks. We'll start with Mr. McCarthy.
Merci bien.
Thank you very much. I'll proceed with my remarks in English as they're already in English.
The last little bit, I was close to the end, but I'll just say that one of the main things is to make sure that there's staffing envelopes for new programs so that they have the proper capacity to deliver the service effectively when they are launched without having to resort to contracting out. That we also revise access to information legislation to require transparency in all of our contracts, including disclosure of wages and benefits for workers, profits, equipment and supply costs, et cetera. And in short, what we are looking for is a change in approach, as I've discussed, about culture, enhanced transparency, and accountability on government contracts. Doing so reduces the significant risks that the public faces that is associated with contracting out. Thank you.
Merci. Madame Carr.
Hey, merci. Oui, merci beaucoup. Je vais continuer en
Yes, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll continue in English.
What we need a modern hiring policies that create efficient timelines for hiring, so it's not easier for managers to hire contractors. We also need to break the continual dependence on contractors because it creates a vicious cycle where the knowledge and skills are never transferred to the public service, which then creates us a reliance on keeping those contracts alive, such as with Phoenix. We need to modernize the IT procurement process by investing in IT expertise in-house and have a stronger control on IT spending. And it's time for a major shift in the outsourcing policy of the federal public service, and your committee can help us improve our public services while saving billions of dollars in runaway costs for outsourcing. So thank you. And if you permit me, with the Indigenous services, at least if we did the hiring inside, we could make sure that those jobs were actually going to First Nation peoples using the public service criteria for equity employment hiring. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup à vous deux.
Thank you very much to both of you. In a report produced in March 2021 on the public service, it stated that there is gender inequity by awarding contracts to masculine fields, like in IT, for example, whereas temporary, lesser paid and precarious contracts are awarded more frequently to women. Mr. McCarthy, did you analyze the gender issues? Did you look at the contracts that, as part of these temporary contracts that are being awarded? And if you did, then what were your conclusions?
Michelle.
I'll let Michelle answer that question.
Thank you for the question. I'm assuming that you're referring to our report on In the Interest of Safety and Security, which is our analysis of contracting out at DND. In that report, yes, that's it, exactly. We did not look specifically at a gender difference in those contracts. I can tell you that most of the contracts that we did look at are contracts for cleaning services or facility maintenance services or kitchen services. And in fact, those contracts pay workers significantly less, even though they cost the government on average 35% more. Right? So we know that the government is incentivizing, by contracting out, they are incentivizing precarious work for workers who are already marginalized. Right? Bringing that work in-house will ensure that those workers have the protections of things like the Employment Equity Act, right, which they don't always have when they're contracted out. The Employment Equity Act the Federal Contractors Program under the Employment Equity Act only applies to those contracts over $1 million. We could have scores and scores of $500,000, $500,000 contracts out there that don't apply to the Employment Equity Act. So we think it's imperative, in order to further gender equity issues, to bring that work back in-house so that the federal government can provide a fair and decent workplace for all workers on its work sites.
On entend souvent.
We often hear, and you can reply, Ms. Carr or Mr. McCarthy, because we often hear that it's hard to recruit to the federal government or any other level of government because salaries aren't competitive with the private sector. And that seems to be consistent with what we've heard in terms of figures. A one-year contract compared, even with social benefits or benefits factored in. Now, apart from the salary, what might explain the difficulty in hiring? And imagine a situation where there isn't a labor shortage, what explains the fact that it's not sexy, it's not attractive to work for a government?
I'm afraid I have to interrupt because that's time again, but I will ask again if
I will put that in writing.
You can respond in writing. Thank you. Mr. Johns, for 6 minutes, please.
Ms. Garash, you really touched on something about the gap in what people are actually getting paid for the outsourcing, right? And actually that it's costing the taxpayer even more money than it would to hire a public servant. Now, in 2018, the UN Special Rapporteur on Poverty and Human Rights discussed privatization as a cause of poverty while still costing governments more. Do you believe the government is aware of global research on privatization and has made efforts to incorporate the findings into its decisions on outsourcing?
That's a two-point question. I think given that the Human Resources Committee of this House studied precarious work, and one of the recommendations of that report on precarious work was that the government work to bring temporary help agency work back into the public service and that they incentivize permanent hiring, indeterminate hiring. I think absolutely there's an awareness. That was a unanimous committee report without dissent. So I think they're aware. The second part of your question, whether they use that awareness in their hiring, I don't think the evidence shows us that they do, no. Or they wouldn't be contracting out at this rate that they are. I think that we have to be clear that a lot of this work is lower paid, especially something like cleaning. I can give you an example at CFB Greenwood in 2018. They were trying to contract out the cleaners. We saw job postings for the new jobs that were at minimum wage, and our members told us, you know what, I don't get rich cleaning base Greenwood, but I can put my kids through hockey. And I'm going to have to leave Greenwood and move to Halifax because I won't be able to afford to stay here. I think any manager knows what's happening when they contract out, and that even if the same workers are hired back in a situation like Greenwood or something like that, they're going to make less money.
Maybe Ms. Carr, staffing shortages in certain areas of the public service have been pointed to as a rationale for outsourcing. Do you have any information on how these shortages came to be and what can be done to build more internal capacity in the public service?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I must say that we are in a different situation because we represent we represent the professional groups. And I just want to talk about some of the things that are staffing, recruiting, especially for Northern nurses, is the fact that they watch agency nurses that come in and have flexibility in their work load, in where they work, how they go to work. They're paid almost 3 times as much as our public servants, and they get a sense of work-life balance. They don't have to deal with Phoenix issues, so they are paid every 2 weeks. They're not waiting 6 months for their overtime check to arrive. They're not fighting with their employer in terms of getting the respect that they need. Agencies are allowed to give huge bonuses for working things like Christmas or during the pandemic. Our workers the front line receive 0 pandemic pay. So that's why we're having some issues in terms of retention and recruitment. Our nurses are burning out and walking over to agencies, getting paid better, and are having the work-life balance. In terms of why we're at the point that we have is because, again, Staffing budgets have not increased. So, and it makes it harder to hire people. We're doing more with less, and we're being told that we can't hire because the salary envelopes haven't been increased. Again, when we talk about IT professionals, we are not keeping on pace, especially in the core public service, with our agencies. So a disparity in pay would make somebody leave one department to go to another that is paying more. So these are just some of the highlights that we need to fix at the bargaining table, but we also have to realize the impact on the government's inability to pay people properly and on time is having a huge recruitment and retention issue for the federal public service.
Well, you're leading me to my next question, actually, because recently the Department of Natural Resources was seeking bids for 2 senior ATIP consultants. You probably read about this, with an estimated cost of about $469,000 a year. I imagine that this is quite a bit higher than what an ATIP specialist are paid within the public service. Do you have any information on the cost differences between hiring public service workers and contracting out to the private sector?
So again, I'm just telling you from our examples, the one where I went one resource for one resource, an IT architect at the Department of National Defense was contracted out for $360,000 a year, and this repeated again for 8 years. An equivalent public service was a servant with benefits was $148,000, and the difference alone on this one hiring, again, $1.5 million over 8 years, that you could hire so many IT professionals or invest in other areas of public servants if you would just look at hiring internally instead of relying on outsourcing.
We just had the union here from CBSA, and they talked about they could have hired 500 employees for what ArriveCan costs. Maybe Mr. Ash or Mr. McCarthy, do you want to speak about the ATIP consultant, this $469,000, and where this is going and how out of control it is?
And a very, very brief answer.
To the committee our written submission to the evaluation of the access to information legislation last year. You can find in there some information from roundtables we held with our members who are the junior ATIP officers to Ms. Carr's senior ATIP officers. And repeatedly they talked about having temporary help agency workers in their workplaces who were there because there were so many vacancies and because the volume of work was so great that they couldn't keep up. And yet, if you
I'm
look
sorry, I have to interrupt, but I have some good news. We're going to go to 4 minutes, and then 2 and 2 to finish. I understand the conservatives are up next, but they're giving their time to Mr. Johns. So I'll give Mr. Johns.
Thank you.
And so if you look at the tenders for ATIP officer temporary help agency work, you will see tenders for 2, 3, and 4 years. This is not temporary help agency work. This is work that indicates that the staffing envelope or the staffing in place for those departments for that work is not sufficient to meet demand. And yet our members also tell us that they could, as Ms. Carr has said, make more money in the private sector if they went to the private sector. And they could also pick and choose the files they worked on. So they wouldn't have the difficult files that an ATIP officer often has to work on. And so we're ending up with mixed workplaces with public sector workers and temp agency workers working side by side, where we're ending up with inefficient processes for ATIP, access to information processing, right? And we're ending up with pay discrepancies, and none of this is serving the public or serving what that legislation is meant to do. And
when the departments make decisions about contracting out, are there any obligations to consult with public sector unions or attempt to fill positions with public service workers first? And if so, can you share how that's actually playing out in practice? Mr. McCarthy.
There's only really obligations around if people are losing their jobs, essentially, right? If people are getting displaced, but there's not. I mean, as you probably heard on our newfound expertise around ATIPs and such, that's how we try and find out a lot of that information about all the other things that could be coming up and what have you. There isn't enough information that flows with regards to contracting out, and so the people who deliver the frontline work and the unions that represent them aren't able to give their valuable opinion on those issues, and we end up with disasters like Phoenix accordingly.
PSAC members have identified reducing contracting out and privatization as a key priority in the current round of bargaining right now. And PSAC's website notes, quote, our bargaining teams are putting forward new contract language calling on Treasury Board to use existing employees or hire and train new employees before contracting jobs out, share information and consult with PSAC prior to using contractors and review the use of temporary staffing agencies, end quote. Has the Treasury Board been receptive to those proposals? And if not, where do you think the resistance stems from?
I think it, frankly, stems from the culture I spoke to earlier of liking contracting, of preferring contracting out. And so the real challenge at the bargaining table is you've got contracting out problems on both ends. On one end, for example, our cleaners would make a little bit more nominally, but when you contract it out, they're having to pay for the profit margin, and then they find out all the problems that are associated with contractors that want to deliver as little as possible for as much as possible, and that there's not always an agreement as to what that contract said, and so there's all kinds of expensive work that goes with that. And then the other end, as Jennifer was speaking to, that there's a lot of discrepancies that Treasury Board hasn't been amenable to, where they're having to contract out because, for example, a power engineer, we can't hire power engineers for a lot of the plants at military bases, for example, and so they end up contracting out for much more. When the answer is clearly make sure that at a minimum these jobs reflect market realities, and we bring that kind of data to the table. So it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be a problem in the first place. That we should, as a large employer with a lot of capacity, should be able to deliver these kinds of things effectively and internally. Thank you.
And if you allow me to interject.
I'm sorry, that's right on
okay.
time for Mr. Johns. Ms. Spinola for 2 minutes, and then back to Mr. Johns for 2.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Quickly, Mr. McCarthy, Ms. Carr. A twofold question. We'll start with Ms. Carr this time. At present, in order to recruit people, the government has to compete with private companies, recruitment companies. In addition, the government hires these kind of headhunters, companies or private companies, that seek out huge payments to do the work. So there's two levels of recruitment, if you will. The headhunter itself and the contracting resources. Now, what would be the benefit for the government to be responsible or to have a government sector that would be extremely specialized in recruitment, and to leave the private firms recruiting for private companies? What would be the benefit of that?
Question, and what I'll say is basically the power dynamic shift. Temporary agencies were that they were hiring for 3 to 6 month contracts. They weren't hiring for long-term duration contracts. And what has happened is now we are using them for multi-year. So they're they are not subject to the same equity and diversity inclusion, bilingualism, and other things that the federal government should be supporting, because those are base requirements of being a federal public servant. You want to make sure that you have the best and the brightest. But what is happening is because, and I'll take the Northern Nurse
Ms.
situation.
Carr, I apologize. We're out of time again. It's a very short session. And I apologize as well. It was Mr. Johns. It was supposed to be Mr. Jouari first before the two of you. So I'm just going to go to Mr. Jouari for 4 minutes, and you can finish up.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. So probably I could follow up on the same theme around the public services staffing process taking too long, and our ability to be able to hire the talent that we need in a relatively short period. In previous testimonies, as also previous committees, when we heard about the length of time that it takes to hire internal staff, we heard about anywhere from 6 months to almost a year to be able to to get through the process, to get the right talent. And with the advance of technology, especially in the IT and how fast it's evolving, I'm not sure whether the experience that you had 6 months or a year ago that it went into the application it might be as relevant. I'd like to hear from both of you, and probably I start with Madam Carr, on what do you think about reform? What type of reform in the hiring process we need to look at, and also what also reform can we put into the type of IT outsourcing that we're looking at? So if each one of the panelists could cover at least about a minute and a half on it, it'll be my 4 minutes. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna hand that off to my VP Henshaw, because she's been working with the Chief Information Officer, and we have identified. So go ahead, Eva.
Thank you. So one of the reforms that we were looking at that I think would benefit the public service is currently collective looking out for people to apply, and they apply for positions. If they're successful after 6 months of going through the process, they go into these pools. And when they're actually contacted to see if they're interested in a position that has come up, unfortunately, they've found work somewhere else because the process has taken so long. And I think around the reform, we need to start looking at pools of skill sets instead of having pools for specific job descriptions. And if these pools of skill sets are opened up to the public, then they will have a better view of what's available out there, and knowing that those skill sets are there, and people would be able to update those skill sets in reality in a moment's notice, so that it's always up to date, then the information will be there for the public service to better fulfill those positions that are required.
So it's almost look like the pool of IT resources that are out there that we look at outsourcing, we could apply the same concept to this pool of in-house resources and expand it. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. McCarthy.
Yes, there's definitely improvements that could be made, and I'll pass the question off over to Howie.
Sorry about that. Yeah, part of the problem too, I mean, we have a central organization in the federal government that is responsible for the oversight of staffing, and that's the Public Service Commission. Part of the problem with the time it takes to staff is that the Public Service Commission at this point tends to play an oversight role, and that oversight role is one in which they're trying to find new IT solutions. But the whole staffing process involves a lot of different people. And all of those people are very, very busy with other work. So
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off here as our time is out. Again, like before, if you wish to submit anything in writing, please do so. Mr. Johns, 2 minutes, and then we will let our witnesses go.
Well, just to finish, I want to make sure that we thank you for your service. I mean, really, truly, the unsung heroes of the pandemic were public servants that delivered services, that came to work through COVID and made sure they took care of Canadians. And I can't say enough to all of you and to all of your members about that incredible contribution. It's historic, and it doesn't go without being recognized. And we know that some see, you know, we know that you're dealing with the fallout later from that, the passports, these things. So I do appreciate you being there. Now, what can you see as the risks to the Canadian public that arise from increasing reliance on outsourcing? I'll have to go to you, Ms. Garash, for like 30 seconds, and then I'll go to Ms. Carr or Mr. McCarthy either.
I mean, the risk is that the government underwrites the risk. And if a private contractor fails, as we watched at the beginning of the pandemic when Carillon failed in the UK, the government picks up the pieces. The government underwrites that risk, right? We have an example, I think it was cited in the first day of testimony here, from, again, our military base workers whose work was contracted out, facility maintenance and yard maintenance was contracted out. The base needed to do essential training exercises, as they do on an ongoing basis. The private contractor failed, The fields, the outside area was not taken care of. It was not safe for the military members to go in and do their exercises. The base commander ordered, and I should say that our members had submitted a business case contrasting their ability with the private contractor, and it was still contracted out. Base commander then ordered the public sector workers to do the work. They didn't have the expertise anymore, and they didn't have the equipment. Right? This is a simple lawn maintenance example, but imagine it's something else, something at an airport, something that is critical to Canada's safety and security. It's a big risk.
From my workers, I just want to put the healthcare
I'm afraid
workers.
all I'm doing with you today, Ms. Carr, is cutting off.
That's
I
fine.
apologize. I'm afraid that's all we have time today. Witnesses, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to stay in meeting. We're not going to suspend because we need to do, we have a hard finish in 9 minutes. So witnesses, thank you very much. We'll let you go, and we're going to continue on with our internal meeting, internally public meeting. Mr. Housefather, did you want to go?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to touch on the issue of our witnesses for ArriveCAN. We've invited members of the departments, 4 different departments, to come. And my understanding, and perhaps it was erroneous, was that we asked for production of documents. And as an attorney, my entire career, you would get the documents that you would ask for in discovery and prepare for your cross-examination or examination of a witness based on the documents, so that you could actually be as knowledgeable as the people who are coming in to testify. And I don't really understand the purpose of having the departments before we get the documents. Now, my understanding, Mr. Chair, and perhaps the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we gave 10 working days to the department last Monday, which would, to me, bring them up to next Tuesday, I think. It's either Monday or Tuesday. And so could we postpone those witnesses?
For the sake of time, I'll address that.
Sure.
But Mr. Barrett, do you want to go quickly first, and then I'll address Mr. Housewell? Just shortage of time.
Okay, so thank you, Chair. Mr. Housefather's points are well taken, and I was not a party to the discussions last Monday, and so that's fine. What I'd say is that I don't know what the direction is with respect to Thursday's notice of meeting and the witnesses who've been invited. I am very curious on the date that document production is owed. But seeing as how there was an agreement in principle, I understand from conversations with members from all parties this morning that ministers would not be coming until we had the documents. Can, in that same good faith interest, instead of moving any motions to invite ministers or invite them for a specific day, I would just ask you, Mr. Chair, if you could canvass the room to see if there is an agreement in principle that once we have received those documents in both official languages, that following that your office, the clerk, could invite, in preparation of that, could invite ministers to appear. So if an invitation went to ministers today, saying that the committee's going to receive documents in anticipation of receipt of those, the committee would like you to appear. Now, as much as I'd love them to come next Thursday or next Monday, that's not my experience. My expectation or my belief would be that they would come when it suits their schedule based on this committee's scheduled meetings. And so that would be likely the week following our first November week break. And so just in the spirit of collaboration, if we could get that agreement in principle without a motion being passed and
Sure. I'll adjust. Certainly, I'll canvass the room. Just very quickly, though, for next Thursday, it was my direction. We had no witnesses for any of our ongoing studies planned. Unfortunately, with the switchover, with chairs, and we hadn't had a planning committee, we had nothing. So it was either the witnesses were available just because of the scramble from the emergency meeting we had. The witnesses weren't available for the first period. My assumption is they were therefore aware they would be called very shortly. I saw the fact we had no witness set up for Thursday. They were ready because they were kind of put on notice. So I decided to put them in for next Thursday. Otherwise, we would have had nothing planned on Thursday. We would have wasted a day. So that was my decision to do that, and that was why. Is there a desire for Mr. Barrett's not motion, but suggestion?
Rapidement, je veux juste être certaine d'avoir.
Well, quickly, I want to make sure that I fully understood the situation, because maybe I didn't understand. But this goes with what we had negotiated for the motion initially, that we would be hearing from the witnesses after having received the documents. Now I understand what you just said, that if we didn't have the witnesses coming on Thursday, there wouldn't have been anyone for the meeting on Thursday. But having said that, we still, well, if we don't have any witnesses, we could look at our our committee business with a view to ensuring that the meeting is pertinent. Receiving witnesses without the documents and going on a fishing expedition might lose the effectiveness of the meeting. And so, in my humble opinion, and I seek your input on this, it would be better not to have the witnesses until we've got the documents. And then we could discuss the work plan, because we haven't had an opportunity to meet recently. Last week we wouldn't. We were running around for a host of reasons. So what do you think about that suggestion?
Sorry, I saw Ms. Block, then we'll go to Mr. Johns, then Mr. Commissioner. But keep it 30 seconds, please, because we're
really tight.
Finishing.
Two things. A letter was sent. We had the conversation about the study on ArriveCAN. I would have assumed that because it was timely and somewhat urgent that we would build it into our immediate schedule. The second thing would be, when is the production of documents at its 10 days?
I see a lot of urgency with 6 studies. So we have 6 studies now that we're working on. I can't think of another committee in government that's got 6 studies. We haven't completed a single study yet. And so I think we need a meeting on Thursday to talk about our plan. We got to get organized. And we have a new chair, and I think it's an opportunity, Mr. Chair. But I agree, we need the documents before we see the public servants. Then let's decide which ministers and who we want. We're going to want to bring forward some witnesses after we've heard from the public servants, but we want to hear from them before we start putting names forward. That's where I'm coming from in terms of, I think we should get organized. But okay. I also, we got to get our priorities.
Right, my intent was we would do that on Monday, to do a sub, and then we'd use up Monday because we have no witnesses, but we do have witnesses for Thursdays, or for Thursday, singular, not Thursday.
I think Ms. Vignola also had an urgent study that we were doing on the Governor General's expenses. So I just, I think prioritizing, how are we deciding on this? And not that I don't want to get to the bottom of the ArriveCAN. Trust me, there's a lot of questions that we have, and we want to get moving. I just think it's important that we're organized.
Just real brief, and then Mr. Barrett,
real brief.
Repeat.
I think Gord and Julie lined the sensible plan forward.
Yeah, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Housefather, or Ms. Vignola.
So, for clarity, can we, the official date with the 10 days for the document production, Mr. Chair, is?
31st, Halloween.
That'll be a treat. I do agree with the sentiment that we need to have a meeting to set some priorities, including with ArriveCAN, but also for the studies that other members of this committee have proposed prior to the past week. So we do need to hear from those officials. But again, Chair, I would just ask if you could canvass if there's an agreement in principle that once we've seen those documents and once we've had officials that that we can anticipate inviting the ministers, because if we wait until after, we'll be inviting the ministers and a month. We could lose a month that could be then we're dragging this out into the return.
Real brief, getting back to Mr. Barrett.
This is dragging it out until the return after
Ms.
January.
Block, Ms. Johns, the Liberals, for that?
I think it was after Mr. Barrett.
No, just Mr. Barrett asked before, and he's asked again, is there a will to his suggestion to have the ministers?
Not right now.
No, as soon as the documents are out.
Well, after we had the documents and heard from the department, then I'm open to hearing discussing who we need to hear from after we've heard from them. But I don't know what minister at this point, and I don't know what. I mean, I think we need to hear from the departments. Maybe can I make a? But I understand the timeliness issue too. So, Mr. Chair, can I make one suggestion?
Just real quick, because we're done in 30 seconds.
I promise you really quick. Mr. Chair, may I make a suggestion that Thursday we do a planning meeting, Monday you have the clerk invite witnesses for a different study, and then Thursday we have the departments, and then you add another 30 minutes at the end of Thursday's meeting to discuss what other witnesses we need to hear from after we've heard from the department. But I think that would be a fair way to do it, so that way you'd get there before the break week.
We're going to finish up.
Clearly, I'm excited about the outsourcing study, and it weaves into ArriveCAN. So I think if there's a way we can work these two together, because I think there is some continuity here, and obviously they're important.
Mr. Barrett, and we'll finish up before we turn into pumpkins.
If officials have been called for Thursday, then let's hear from them Thursday and let's have the planning meeting on Monday. But the fact that we don't have for this outsourcing study even ministers summoned or invited for that, this is a challenge. If we're inviting ministers and then expecting them to just arrive the following day, we're going to have no success, and these studies are going to drag out. We're going to have 6-7 studies, and we're going to be dealing with them in February or the end of January when we return in 2023. Yeah, we need a...
Okay, Mr. Barrett. I thank everyone for the comments. We're going to finish up. I'm going to suggest we stick with the Thursday. We have witnesses already. We had difficulty getting them first time around. Monday, I'll suggest that we do our planning meeting, but we have witnesses already, so I'm going to say we stick with that. Thanks.
Let's vote on this in terms of the plan for next week.
For Monday, sure. But Thursday, we're going to stick with our witnesses.
So I would like to move that we do not call those witnesses this Thursday, that we have them after we get the documents.
Absolutely.
We are at 1. What are we doing? Well, Mr. Barrett, and then...
Yeah, so, Chair, we have a situation where the committee initiated this work on a matter that's in the public interest, and you've expressed that the clerk had difficulty.
There was a consensus going on. That wasn't what we agreed to. You guys are railroading this.
I'm not railroading anything.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to interrupt. We do have a motion, but we have to finish this because we can continue on for. Sorry, let me finish. Why don't we continue for 5 minutes? Mr. Barrett, you're still speaking. The clerk will check about services, but we told there was a 1 o'clock cap. I'll have him double check. If there is a 1 o'clock cap, then we're going to have to probably call a vote because we can't adjourn, but we can't continue. Mr. Barrett, why don't you go ahead and we'll check with services while you were speaking.
Well, first of all, Chair, I don't believe the standing orders allow for a vote to be put at committee while there are still speakers who are seeking the floor. So that's I would implore you to check as well, because we have a situation now where there was an agreement or an understanding rather that the committee would not hear from ministers until documents were received. And my understanding is that that's what's unfolding. And so there was a motion put forward a week ago today, that prescribed that ministers be called. Now, that was not the motion that was passed. The motion was amended, and witnesses, and there were to be 2 meetings with more witnesses, or more meetings as required. Now, we had a half meeting where we heard from GC Strategies, and GC Strategies, hearing from them on the same panel that we heard from the union who represents our CBSA officers. Hearing from GC Strategies without having seen the documents is as problematic as hearing from anyone else. It would always be great to have that information, but I also think that we're in a situation now where we're going to have to read it once and check it twice, and hearing from the officials about what their role was and what the process was that unfolded in the awarding of contracts for this app, why government services weren't used, why in-house IT wasn't used, and then taking a look at the documents and then determining, do we need different officials? Do we need those same officials to return? Because, frankly, the information that we're operating on was given to us by the government. It was signed by a parliamentary secretary, and some of it was wrong. So it's not outside of reason that we're going to need to hear from some people twice. The need for multiple document sets has evidenced itself. Seeing the documents that private companies have as well as the documents that the government used, that's going to prove to be important, because just solely relying on what's being tabled is not sufficient. And it's thanks to public reporting, in this case in the Globe and Mail, that we found out that $1 million plus to one company, that didn't actually happen. And so there's a lot of work to do here. But I think that the further we push this off, it's going to turn this into a process that's going to stretch into the new year. We're going to run out of runway unless this is the sole issue that this committee wants to devote its attention to between now and Christmas. And I don't see a will for that. So getting some of this done, getting some of that work done, I think that it's important. If these witnesses have been invited, and Mr. Kosmarchuk said I was railroading them. I had no idea witnesses were coming this Thursday. None. So I'm not railroading anyone. I want to talk to officials. I want ministers. But I understood there was a conversation, a sidebar, where folks said, that's not the spirit of what we discussed last Monday when you weren't here. Okay. So I put forward an informal proposal that in the future that we invite ministers. Frankly, those ministers can say no. But we're not doing any planning. If we're just running meeting to meeting, now we're pushing off the witnesses we know we're going to have, so that we can have a meeting to talk about inviting those witnesses. That doesn't seem like it's going to be a very good use of time. We're going to end up at the November break week, and then we're going to be into the last 5 weeks before the end of this year. I just don't see us getting through this, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Vinola, then Mr. Kosmarchuk.
J'aimerais simplement.
Well, I'd like to be very, very clear. It's not about postponing this study indefinitely. We all want to get to the bottom of it. However, I don't see why it would be efficient to bring witnesses, then get documents and say, oh, well, we didn't have the right witnesses, or we have to ask some more questions because I discovered something else in the documents. So we all work. We've got the room to reserve. We've got the technicians, everything. This is all taxpayers' money being spent here on these meetings. People who are already having had trouble making ends meet in their families. I'm talking about a situation of effectiveness, about if we've got the documents, then we can ask the questions where we'll question them. We'll look at all of the aspects, and then we'll be able to say, I want to hear from this witness because this information isn't clear. And then we'll have very pointed, specific, decisive questions, delicate, sensitive questions to get to the bottom of this story. And if it turns out that these questions have to be asked of the department or senior officials or others, then so be it. But we need to be efficient and effective, because this is the whole objective. We're saying, well, this wasn't effective. It cost a lot to do X, Y, and Z. It cost more than there were cost overruns. But at the same time, we call in people without really knowing what we're going to ask as questions. We get the documents. Then what? we say, oh, I didn't ask the right questions, and we have to start over. And that's costing a lot for nothing. I want us to be effective. We need to move forward. If the ministers, the department have to come in, if we need half of the officials there, then we'll bring them in. But I don't think we can be effective, 100% effective, without having the documents before we question the officials on this subject. So that's what I wanted to point out. We want to hold them accountable. We have to be accountable. No witnesses on Thursday. We need to talk about the plans, planning for our committee, as I mentioned. We need to take the time to plan, to move forward in a clear fashion. Now, I know that we always can't have the witnesses we want on the specific date that we want, but we can have a plan B. But it's by meeting and sitting down that we'll be able to do this. If we do this hold the meeting on Thursday and then we get the documents on Monday, well, no. If we get the documents, then the following Thursday we could hold the meeting and we will be able to ask pertinent questions at that point. So that's what I think would be most effective.
Sir.
Thank you, Chair. And Madame Vignola eloquently stated, more eloquently than any of us could, this situation. And, you know, I've been on the committee now for 3 years, and what really sets this committee apart is our emphasis on logic and precision. And Madame Vignola had mentioned those words in her statement as well, too. And again, I think there was a consensus that when we were talking earlier that it didn't make sense, it didn't make any logic for us to call witnesses before we have all the evidence that is required, the written evidence. It just makes logical sense to wait until we have that information. My comment about railroading was basically directed at the fact that it seemed, from what we heard from members of different parties around this table, that it didn't make sense to call witnesses on Thursday. And then under the pretense of time running out for this meeting, all of a sudden we hear that we're going to bring witnesses before we bring the evidence, the written evidence. So that's what I was trying to flag as well, too. So again, let's be logical, let's be precise, and it makes sense that we get the evidence first before we call the witnesses. And when we get the evidence and hear the witnesses, of course, it makes logical sense, if required, to call ministers, the appropriate ministers, to testify.
Ms. Block?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I can appreciate that there have been a lot of moving parts, certainly with a change in membership on this committee, a change in chair, and trying to make sure that we have a calendar with meaningful work to do. You know, having been a member of Parliament for 14 years and sat on many different committees, undertaken many studies, I find it passing strange that we would expect that any public servants who are coming to speak to a study that we've suggested we would like to undertake would come with all of the documentation without knowing which direction we would want to go in. So I think, you know, in my experience, when a committee determines that they want to undertake a study, they start with the public officials. They start with the departmental officials to get an understanding of the issue, to get the background, to understand what has transpired to date. I think we won't even know who all of the public officials we are that we would want to hear from until we have that background. So I think that is truly the spirit in which we recommended that we start with public officials, to get that background, to start the study, and then we will know from there which direction we need to go in and who else we would like to hear from, and zero in on which other officials we may need to call. So I truly believe that that is the spirit in which we believed we were inviting the public, the departmental officials to appear first. Thank you.
Ms. Kusi?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And, I think the points that my colleague, Mr. Barrett, made about just how in having officials appear, really how we see how it does provide us always with like new information, which I think Canadians need in an effort to really bring this to light. And, I don't think that we can lose sight of that. And to Mr. Downs' point, I mean, I recognize that there are lots of studies on the books, but I also think it's very prudent of us to always consider those matters which are of the greatest urgency for Canadians. And I think in this case, we definitely have a situation where we see evidence of the documents that we have, not even necessarily that we have received, but which the media has received and has uncovered and brought to the light of not just only this group, but other Canadians, as perhaps not clear evidence of a great indicator that there might be more that we can obtain in having these ministers and other witnesses come here in an effort to shed some light on that. So I think we really have to consider that. And just as important, Mr. President, I think it's very important that we, all take some time in this room to reflect upon, what Canadians, what our voters would actually think about if we were seen to be complicit and not bringing forward this information as soon as possible to light. I certainly wouldn't want my citizens thinking that I'm an accomplice to further information being covered up, or not. In fact, not even an accomplice to information being covered up, but rather being a party to shedding as much information as possible, as soon as possible, to information to an issue which continues to be reported on a daily basis since it's breaking. And so, I think that it's very important that we
point of order,
consideration to that.
Ms.
And
Ms.
that
Cusi has the floor, please. Ms. Cusi has the floor.
And I'm hearing my colleague saying it's unfortunate I have the floor, which is really hurtful because I usually think we have nice conversations and interactions.
Sorry, Ms. Cusi, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes. Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just could not hear what you were saying, Ms. Vinola, between.
Donc, un point d'ordre.
A point of order, and I'd like to call us back to order here. Now, if we want the study to take place, then the analysis needs to be complete. So I can't accept, with all due respect to all colleagues around the table, I can't accept being told that I'm an accomplice in wanting to cover up this information. I can't accept that. Because since the outset, since I've supported the motion with a view to conducting a study and asking us if we can continue.
Your comments are very well taken, and I would suggest that we all avoid such language. Ms. Cusi? It's Ms. Cusi's floor still then.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. John.
Yeah, my apologies for if this was found offensive, but frankly, it's a risk that everyone around this table runs in not agreeing to resolve this as soon as possible, and certainly, in my goodness, it'll be 6 years in the spring that I've been honored to be the representative here for Calgary Midnapore, and I certainly have found many meetings and many forums, objectionable. In addition to some of the items that have, not only the items that have been discussed, but actually the manner in which they've been brought forward, and perhaps even, to use my colleague's term, railroaded through other committees that I've been on. So, again, I think we just need to, really consider sort of what the The not having those witnesses here as soon as possible really reflects upon not only the work of this committee, but our work as parliamentarians. I would say this House as well. We definitely, we are brought here in good faith by our constituents to discuss the most pressing of issues, the most pressing of matters. And as I've said, as is evidenced by the information which has been uncovered about ArriveCAN, in addition to other issues, again, which I said my colleague Michael Barrett has brought up. We have recognized the necessity of having to have these important conversations and meetings to reveal as much as possible, as soon as possible. And so, I for one definitely would like to get to the bottom of this as soon as possible. I think, as is evidenced even by the studies we completed today and the witnesses that we had here today, that these matters can drag on for, my goodness, years, approaching on decades. I think if we look into the procurement study that we had in the first hour of this, and so, we cannot make light of this, that it is possible that that we do not put the things which are most important first. And as such, I would ask that we really consider that this is a priority for us to get to the bottom of as soon as possible, and continue to call upon these witnesses and to uncover more information. And in fact, the government as well should take a footnote from one of their departments, because as I said, there are studies coming out on a regular basis here. I see now that the border agency is reviewing the list after the wrong firm being linked to the app. And in fact, we've seen now it wasn't just one firm. In fact, it was 3 firms at this point. Hard to believe, but we had the ThinkOn and then the ENY and then the MapleSoft, but then it turned out to be the wrong MapleSoft. But my point is that, that, Mr. Chair, should also serve as an indicator that there are people in the government who take this very seriously and recognize that more work has to be done and more steps have to be done. And so, I think it's just something that we absolutely have to pay attention to, that even this agency is recognizing this is something important. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to follow the news. I don't know Huey, but I do know the news, and I have here 2 owners of the IT firm which we had as witnesses here. I see this was also a story making up potentially to $2.7 million for hiring the team that helped build ArriveCAN, as reported in the National Post. So, Mr. Chair, this is just another example of information that was revealed to this committee as a result of having witnesses. And again, I'm looking here now at one Globe and Mail, Bill Curry. There was another. Was that a CBC article? At least two of the major news houses in the nation, Mr. Chair, which think that this is of utmost importance for us to be dealing with. And I don't think that we should take this lightly. In fact, I'm very interested to see the list or the documents, I should say, that we will be receiving as to the other third parties who were contracted, or were they? I think that's what we've learned from the research that we've seen so far within the media as to who they were, the amounts that existed. And were they in fact contracted? This actually reminds me, Mr. Speaker, of when I actually ran the budget at missions around the world, and it was always a 3-part test and a place where you had to sign off in 3 places. The one that the order was placed, the second that the goods were delivered, And the final section was that that we had received the goods. It was a three-part part. So is that a suggestion? Which is a good suggestion? Okay. All right. Yeah. So it was a three-part process for delivery of procurement, and these were at like single missions around the world, Mr. Chair. Not entire departments or entire projects, but rather, my own little mission in El Salvador, say, for example, where I had to complete this three-step process. So, and I can say with pride, Mr. President, that I think if you were to look back on the documents of my time in those roles, that I feel very strongly that we follow these procurement processes to the letter because we recognized that it was important to do so at the time. And so, this is really another example when I think back to the importance of demonstrating to the public that we have followed the procedure and that the government has followed the procedure and received value for money, Mr. President. And it's something that unfortunately doesn't seem to be resonating with this committee here today. So, to talk further about it, I think about, sometimes I don't think we've always had success when we've had ministers come to committees in terms of getting the answers that we had hoped for. But other times, maybe we have had success, and I would use the examples of our two guests from GC Strategies as this kind of experience where we did find out new information from witnesses who were here. So again, I don't think that we can lose sight of it, and it's interesting. Even as I was going through my own questioning process to the employees from GC Strategies, I was actually having to refresh the procurement process in my mind, because when I was asking the contract that they themselves received, was it a sole proprietor contract? And in having received a sole proprietor contract, with the unique distinction that they did make that it was a natural emergency given the pandemic, and I do personally accept that rationale. But then they, as a sole contractor, when they subcontract, are they also required? What is the stringency of procurement rules that they must follow? Are they required to do an open RFP or RFQ, or go through a multi-vendor selection process in an effort to determine the subcontracts? And you know what? I think we're going to find some of that out as we continue this ArriveCAN process. So that's something that is super fascinating to me. And in fact, in getting this new role as Shadow Minister for the Treasury Board, somewhere in my boxes in my basement, I do still have all of my instruction manuals for the position of the Management Consular Officer at the different missions, which I held. And I'd like to go through that and actually refresh my mind of the procurement, so that when I come here, I can certainly hold these ministers and this witness to the same standards that I was held to as the manager of different missions abroad. So, I'm really reflecting upon that time and the responsibility that I had as a public servant, a proud public servant, for my goodness, close to 15 years, and took that responsibility of the public spending very seriously. And I also recall how
Sorry, Mr. Housefather.
Relevance, Mr. Chair. This is utterly irrelevant to whether or not we wait till after we receive documents to hear from certain witnesses. This has gone so far afield that I have to call relevance.
Sorry, excuse me 2 seconds. Thanks for your point, Mr. Housefather, although I think it's tradition we allow very wide leeway when we are debating issues. Ms. Cusi, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it is relevant because I'm talking about how I, as a public servant, was held to the standard of a very high standard of value for money and demonstrating where the money I spent as a public official was actually spent. And I think that's all that we're asking for in this study and in the plus bref délai possible. You know, I just want to go back to another point that Mr. Barrett made, and that was about just how difficult it is to land officials. You know, they have very demanding schedules, and so I think it's very important that we consider that how hard it is for them to accommodate our schedules. Can you contact Chris and thank you. And in addition to that, you know, it was actually just brought to my attention by my colleague here about when this committee before my time did a study on the Governor General, and at that time apparently they had officials before the document. So apparently there is a precedent where this has occurred before. So you know, this would not in fact be the first time. Yes, there is a first time for everything, but this would not be the first time, definitely not as well. But, you know, I think actually that's a very good point about the Governor General. And if we think about the things that were uncovered even of the Governor General's spending, and I certainly have a lot of respect for the office of the Governor General. As a former diplomat, I take great care in terms of hospitality and the necessity to demonstrate good hospitality, both as Canadians, both home and abroad. But of course, that study indicated, Mr. President, that as much as we want to display goodwill and hospitality to others, you know, certainly even that has its limits. I think I definitely think that we learned in that case. And of course, we do not want to be penny wise and pound foolish. But again, I think when we look at some of the expenses, you know, that there came a lot to light. Even with that study. But my point, you know, getting back to this, Mr. President, is that was another study where just we were able to bring to light for Canadians just, you know, some expenses.
Ms. Cusi,
that they
I'm sorry
weren't.
to interrupt.
Yes,
Folks,
sorry.
I'm going to interrupt. I've had a couple of requests for a 2-minute washroom break, so I'm going to suspend for 2 minutes. are going to resume. Thank you, everyone, for their patience while we dealt with other business.
Thank you. Yes, and my last comment was, interestingly enough, although I did not sign for the Madame Payette when she was the Governor General, I did sign her expense reports when she was NASA in Houston as Consul to Dallas. So on that note, I will end, Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to share some of my life experiences relevant to the discussion we're having here today.
Mr. Housefather?
Mr. Chair, I hope we've reached a consensus that we may then not have to vote on a motion, if that's okay, but to say that on Thursday that we will have a planning meeting. On Monday, we will ask you to call witnesses for the outsourcing study or whatever study we're able to draw witnesses from, have the officials here on Thursday after we receive the documents, and then go from there, Mr. Chair. So if it's okay, I'll withdraw my motion, and hopefully there's a consensus for that.
Wonderful. I think we have consensus for Thursday will be planning. Monday we'll either look for witnesses for outsourcing or diversity in procurement. And we should have the documents Monday and distributed by then, but not in time for committee. Thursday we will resume the ArriveCAN with the witnesses from this Thursday. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Especially, I think we have agreement. We'll say so. Translators, thank you very much. Clerks, analysts, thank you very much. I appreciate your patience in dealing this rather awkward a moment. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.